everyone, so today I wanted to share this layout with you. I'm using Kaisercraft's Happy Snaps, and this is continuing on from our April 2015 holiday. So with the Happy Snaps collection, I have the 6.5 by 6.5 paper pad, and I'm just showing you there's some sort of pieces that pop out at the back there. I also had their version of an ephemera pack, and there's bits that I've cut out and I store it in that little Ziploc bag inside the big Ziploc bag. So when you buy a collection of the 12 by 12s from Kaisercraft, you can buy them as a paper pad, or you can buy them as a set of double-sided sheets. And I think there's 24, maybe only 12 actually in the set, and you also get the sticker sheet, so I've got that there as well. So I really like the colours and the designs in this collection, particularly that card there, but it's not going to make it on this layout. And that's the reason I bought, that's probably the most I've bought of one particular collection, or at least when it comes to Kaisercraft. And I also had this bag from our holiday which had all of the icons of the theme parks on there, and I've cut out the SeaWorld one. I had two of those bags, so that was another one that I had. And I'm going to start with the title card. So as I am in all of the holiday album pocket pages, I'm actually rounding the corners on the 4 outside corners of the whole page, and you can see I've got an idea of what the 12 by 12 will look like off to the other side, and basically all I know is I want the 3 photos of the penguins on that side with that strip which has been cut out of a 12 by 12 sheet, and I've just pulled out some papers that I think will coordinate from the Happy Snaps collection. So just now looking at that photo at the bottom left and doing that card, and I thought it looked a bit plain, and so it needed a little bit of definition around the photo, so I decided to mount that with the black cardstock. So obviously I've got the black on the title pocket on the top left. I'm also going to have black on the layout on the right hand side because of all of that the camera and that sort of embellishment on that side. And then just looking, these 3 photos in the middle are sort of in a sequence, so they'll be kept fairly plain because it was sort of a story that will be told in that. I'll be doing some journaling at the top of that to describe that. So I'm just using my Tim Holtz pink circle punch to punch out some of these. And one of the reasons I really like the Happy Snaps collection is, if you would have heard me talking before, if you've seen some of my other videos, I really like collections where you can pretty much have just the papers and still manage to create nice layouts by cutting apart some of the 12 by 12 sheets and embellishing with those. And the Happy Snaps collection is really good for that. You'll see that I've got this sheet here which I've used some of it already. It's got some love hearts and some circles, and there's lots of things that you can use for embellishment on this page. That's generally how I will use a sheet like that rather than a full piece as a background or as a layer behind something. I may use it as a strip, a long strip of to ground something, but as a general rule I tend to want to cut these sheets apart. And then you'll also see me in a little while using or cutting apart their sheet of cameras. So they had another sheet that was very similar that just had different sized cameras and things like that. You can probably see a little bit of it off to the left there. And so yeah, just trimming that down. And I had already, you can see that bowl that I've got to the top right, I had already pulled out a few pieces that I thought might go well with this layout. So anything that had sort of a blue or a green or aqua sort of highlight to it, but I end up not using a lot from that bowl in the end. It's mainly from the sheet, so I'm just going to pull that off to the side while I work on this page. This video will just cover the pocket pages on this side. So I'm going to adhere the photos down. I'm happy with where I've decided all the photos are going to be, and just start thinking now about how I'm going to embellish them. So before I start embellishing, I just want to stick them down so that they're all in their place where they should be. So adhering that that page down now as well, or that pocket down now as well. I really like the idea of using things that you collect, particularly for a holiday album, and including them as part of the layout. So that SeaWorld, you know, it's just been cut out of a plastic bag, and I'm just using double-sided tape. I did put the double-sided tape behind the text as much as possible so that it won't show through, because it's sort of a clear plastic bag otherwise. But that looks like it could be a sticker quite easily. So, you know, just being mindful of, you know, if you're going to scrapbook a holiday or an event, you know, what are the things that you could keep from that event or holiday that will allow you to incorporate part of the holiday into the actual album, not just the photos. And so if you watch my one of my previous layouts, I collected some shells from the beach that we went to, and I included some of those shells in the layout. So just sticking down all of those photos now, and then I'll look at how I can embellish those. So this whole page is obviously all about the penguins at SeaWorld, and yeah, just decided that I wouldn't include any photos of people here. We did spend a lot of time looking at the penguins. At the time, my kids were quite fascinated with penguins, and so there were two different types that we could see, and so the pocket pages are the fairy penguins, and the 12x12 will be the emperor penguins on the other page. So just looking now at some stickers, and that's that sticker sheet that I mentioned. This one says, "Smile today is amazing," and so I'm just going to add some foam squares to that to give that some dimension and lift off the page. And basically these foam squares are quite skinny foam squares, I guess, so they're one of my favourites because they don't give too much dimension. So I find some of the foam squares can be a little bit thick and lift things off the page, particularly when you're using pockets, because you don't want to have too much dimension coming off the page. And I'm just looking at this little embellishment that says "Picture Perfect," and that's just one of those ones that I've punched out of that black sheet that had all of those little things on there. And also looking at some word stickers now that might go with this particular layout and giving some dimension to that as well. So this one says "unique," and it fits well with this particular photo because this little penguin, the story behind this is that all of those penguins at the top there were swimming together, backwards and forwards, and we were watching them and just fascinated with the fact that they just kept going backwards and forwards. But this little penguin, you might be able to see in the photo, actually had lost part of his flipper, and so he was a little bit slow, and by the time he had reached the other side, you know, all the penguins were coming back in the opposite direction, so he'd kind of hit the pack and then turn around and go back again, and hit the pack and turn around and go back again. And so we were fascinated watching him, and my kids thought that was quite funny, and so the unique sticker is very relevant to that particular photo. And so that's sort of, you know, part of the story behind the layout, and we're actually there for the feeding of the penguins, which is the photo on the right hand side down the bottom, and also managed to capture a photo or a series of photos of one particular penguin who was launching himself into the water. So I kind of got him running, just about to jump, and then jumped off into the water. So I thought that that was quite a nice sequence of photos to include on the layout as well. So I'm just sticking down another sticker from that sheet, and this one says "snapshot," which is kind of, I guess, relevant to that photo because it was a snapshot of what we were actually doing at the penguin enclosure in the first place. So if you haven't ever been to SeaWorld, I'm sure it's like many sort of theme park sort of style things. They have particular times where they will feed the animals, and you're more likely to see a bit more interaction or a bit more action going on at the time. So we missed it last time we were there, so we decided that we were going to make a point to go and see them this time. So just looking now at adhering down some more of the embellishments that I've punched out. And so I'm going to use the full circle on that middle photo that has a camera, and then on the other two photos I'm actually going to adhere those flat, so I'm not using foam squares for this, and I'm also going to trim off part of the circle, so it's just going to be sort of coming off the photo to the bottom, and also the one at the top will come off the photo to the top. Oh sorry, no, I put it down the bottom. I really didn't want to put too much embellishment on these particular photos, so I was trying to keep it as simple as possible, and then that card up the top, the turquoise one with the white polka dots, will tell the story there of that particular penguin. And I've got plenty of journaling space to talk about the other photos as well, so each of the journaling boxes will relate to the specific photos. This one at the top says picture perfect. They were all sort of swimming quite in sync, except for this one little one down the bottom, so that's a perfect, I guess, a perfect embellishment for that particular card. And I think, you know, that's one of the other things about this collection. It's very sort of generic, so it can be used to scrapbook any kind of event, because it really does talk about photos and images and things like that. Generally enjoying the day and those kind of things, and cameras are always applicable to most layouts because it's all about taking photos of a particular event. So there's one of the little sheets that I said had lots of little cameras on there, so I do end up using a fair bit of that. And I did have that in the 6.5 by 6.5, but also had it in the 12 by 12, so you can kind of you know, pull some of the smaller cameras off the 12 by 12 and the larger ones off the 6.5, and they can coordinate as well. So and they're actually textured as well. They've got like a gloss finish to some of them, so it makes it look even more like an embellishment. And I just find that this is good value for money, and you know, definitely something I would look at when purchasing paper pads. Is if I'm going to pay top dollar for a pack of papers, or you know, a pad of papers, what I really want is something that's going to serve me well and be versatile, and almost be able to stand alone in being able to create a page, or work well with embellishments that I already have. So I've used a fair bit of this collection and will continue to go back to it. In particular, I like the colours as well, so those sort of blues and greens and you know, bright sort of pops of colour as well. And this is part of that 12 by 12, and you can see I've hacked into a lot of those because there's not a huge amount of that sheet left. But yeah, just cutting another camera out of that sheet, and it actually happens to match with the little camera at the top right there, I think it is. So it's good to have them coordinate in that way. And very similar to the one actually on the bottom left card as well. So just trimming that down, and then I decide that actually that is going to be a little bit too big to go over the top of the word. So I'm actually going to sit that camera flat to the page, and I will peel up that snapshot banner, and I end up getting some of the double-sided foam squares stuck to the photo, so I just need to pick that off and stick the camera down, and then put the word over the top of the camera. And what that does is kind of, I guess, blend it into the background a little bit more. It is quite a large camera, so you don't want it to sort of sit over the top of the word at all. And then it coordinates well with the rest of the page, because it doesn't sort of that grounding feature instead of being the embellishment, but it's still matching all of the other pages or pockets that have cameras on them as well. So I've just got these tiny little cameras that came from this strip that I used on the card on the bottom right, and I'm actually just going to add some dimension to one of those, or two of those actually. So I'm using a strip, I'm going to add that to that top right card, and then I'm going to add some dimension to some other coordinating coloured ones, and just use those on the circles that I punched out from that middle row, so the top photo on the middle row and the bottom photo on the middle row. Would have been good if I'd made this decision before I started sticking down some stuff, but you know, sometimes you get to the end and go, there's just something missing from that particular card, and you come back to it. So I generally am a bit random about how I do these pockets. I want them all to look like they coordinate well. So I do come back and add different things to each one, get a rough idea of, you know, what I want to lay down, and then I start sticking and go, oh, it would look good if I added this or this or this. So originally I was trying to add that strip of photos, and then I decided I'm just going to cut out 2 individual strip of cameras. Then I decided I'm going to cut out 2 individual cameras and add those to those circles that I trimmed the bottom off. As a final little embellishment on those particular photos. So almost coming to an end, I do also pull out some enamel stickers, I guess. Oh, and the title, of course. So these stickers, I can't remember the name of them, but they are glitter, black glitter chipboard, and they're quite a not a blocky font, but a very almost old typewriter sort of style font, and so I'm going to spell out from the middle, working my way out. And what I find is that this word tends to not fit and get a bit squished, and so one of the techniques I use for that is to not have the word in a straight line. So I'm sort of alternating the letters to go up and down, so that they can kind of squish in a little bit more. So you can see that E kind of hugs in under the P, and yeah, it's sort of, I guess it helps so you can have it on a bit of an angle to try and angle them in so that they'll fit across the page. And the reason I chose these letters, besides the fact that they were black and going to coordinate with the layout, was that they were quite a small sort of font. Not particularly skinny, but just small enough that they won't look too big on that particular card. So it just says Penguins of, and then you've got the SeaWorld plastic down the bottom. So I fiddle around with these letters for a bit, trying to just make them look okay. The theory of starting in the middle works okay if all the letters are the same size, but because the I was a lot skinnier, I ended up moving it or shifting all the letters off to the right a little bit. Struggling to talk at the moment. So I just go back to that sticker sheet and see what else I can use, and I decided I'm going to use this sticker, which actually says, I will remember and treasure this day always. So that's definitely very relevant to the particular page that I'm scrapbooking. And so just now looking at what else I can add, and decide I'm going to go with some enamel stickers. So I have these enamel hearts that came from a Project Life kit, and so decide I'm going to add those enamel hearts to those areas, and then I'll also go ahead and add some of the enamel dots that are on that sheet as well. So just adding those, and so basically each embellishment area has at least one enamel piece to it, so whether it be a heart or whether it be the little circles that I'm adding as well. And so I'm adding the blue and the green just because the layout has a bit of blue and green. So if there was blue, I'm adding green, and if there's green to that, predominantly green there, I'm adding some blue. So just spreading the colours around the page, I guess. So that's about it for this layout. There's some still shots at the end. I hope you enjoyed this process. Stay tuned for the 12 by 12 page. Thanks for watching the video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more. And yeah, thanks for watching.